The crystal champagne flute trembled in my hand as I watched my sister Maureen glide through the banquet hall, commanding attention with every step. Even at our parents' 40th anniversary celebration, she had to make it all about herself. My name is Rosalind, and I've spent 31 years living in my sister's shadow. Oh, darling, Maureen's voice carried across the room as she air-kissed our mother's cheeks. The party is absolutely divine, though I would have recommended the Four Seasons instead of this quaint venue. I took another sip of champagne, grateful for the liquid courage. Jake, my best friend, squeezed my arm reassuringly. Don't let her get to you, Roz. Your startup is going to change everything. If it survives another month, I muttered, watching Maureen work the room in her designer dress that probably cost more than my quarterly rent. Rosalind, my father's booming voice made me jump. Come join your sister. She's telling everyone about her latest promotion. Of course she was. I plastered on a smile and made my way over to the growing crowd around Maureen. The clicking of my sensible heels seemed dull compared to the sharp staccato of her Louboutins. There's my baby sister. Maureen's perfectly painted lips curved into what others might mistake for a warm smile. I was just telling everyone about my new position as senior vice president. Congratulations, I managed, though the word tasted bitter. And what about you, dear? My mother's friend Patricia asked, her eyes kind but patronizing. Still working on that little, what was it again? It's a tech startup, I began, but Maureen cut in with a laugh that made my skin crawl. Oh, Mom, did I tell you about the merger I just orchestrated? $2 billion in assets. She turned to me with false concern. How much was your last quarter's revenue, Rosie? Still in the red? The room seemed to shrink. I could feel dozens of eyes on me, waiting for my response. Jake appeared at my elbow with a fresh glass of champagne, but Maureen wasn't finished. You know, sis, there's no shame in admitting the entrepreneur life isn't for everyone. I'm sure I could find you something entry-level at my company. The benefits are excellent. My company is doing fine, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. We're actually on the verge of what? Another failed prototype? Maureen's laugh turned heads. Remember her lemonade stand when we were kids? She couldn't even make that work. Our mother tittered nervously. Girls, please, this is supposed to be about your father and me. I'm just trying to help, Maureen said, raising her glass. We can't all be successful. Someone has to be. She paused for effect. The family disappointment. The silence that followed was deafening. I saw pity in some faces, amusement in others. My father suddenly became very interested in his shoes, while my mother fussed with her pearls. You'll never be successful like me, Rosie, Maureen continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. It's time to accept that and move on. My phone buzzed in my clutch. A message from Leandro Delgado, the investor I'd been courting for months. The same investor who, coincidentally, had just pulled out of negotiations with Maureen's company. Excuse me, I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. I need to take this call. As I walked away, I heard Maureen launch into another story about her corporate triumphs. But for the first time in years, I didn't care because I knew something she didn't, something that would wipe that smug smile off her face in less than an hour. Jake followed me to the hallway. You okay? I checked my phone again, a smile playing at my lips. Better than okay. Leandro's calling in 5 minutes. The deal? Maybe. I straightened my spine, remembering all the nights I'd worked while Maureen partied, all the savings I'd invested while she bought designer bags. But either way, I'm done being the family disappointment. What are you going to do? I glanced back at the party, where Maureen was still holding court. I'm going to show my dear sister that success comes in many forms, and karma can be a real bitch. My phone started vibrating. Leandro's name flashed on the screen. Wish me luck, I said to Jake, my hand steady as I reached for the phone. The time for living in shadows was over. One way or another, this night would change everything. I stepped into the quiet hallway, my heels clicking against the marble floor as I answered Leandro's call. My heart was pounding, but my voice remained steady. Leandro, thank you for calling. Rosalind, his accented voice was warm but businesslike. I've reviewed your proposal again. Very interesting timing considering what happened with your sister's company. I leaned against the wall, watching through the doorway as Maureen continued to dominate the party. Timing is everything in business, isn't it? Indeed, he paused. Tell me again why I should invest in your company instead of hers. The question brought me back to 3 years ago, sitting in my tiny apartment with Jake, surrounded by prototype sketches and empty coffee cups. Remember when we first met? I asked. You said you wanted innovation that would actually help people, not just make money. I remember. My sister's company is all about profit margins and quarterly reports, but my software? It's already helping small businesses cut their energy costs by 40%. Real people, real savings. Jake appeared in the hallway giving me a thumbs up. I took a deep breath and continued. And that's just the beginning. With your investment, we could expand to... Stop selling, Leandro interrupted. I've made my decision. My stomach dropped. Through the doorway, I could see Maureen raising her glass for another toast. The papers are being drawn up as we speak, he said. 20 million with the terms we discussed. The world seemed to tilt. You're saying yes? I'm saying yes, and I've already informed the media. They should be running the story within the hour. I gripped the phone tighter. The media? Is that a problem? No, I said quickly, thinking of the TV running in the background at the party. No problem at all. After hanging up, I slumped against the wall. Jake rushed over. Well, what did he say? I showed him the text that just came through. The official term sheet. His eyes widened. Holy shit, Roz. 20 million. This is huge. Shh. I pulled him further from the doorway. The story's gonna break on the news soon. I want it to be a surprise. Jake's grin turned wicked. You mean you want Maureen to find out along with everyone else? Exactly. That's cold. He paused. I love it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Yvette, my mentor. Did you get it? She texted. The news crew is ready. You knew? I texted back. Who do you think suggested your company to Leandro? Tears pricked my eyes. While Maureen had been busy tearing me down, others had been quietly building me up. We should get back, Jake said, nodding toward the party. Your parents are about to give their anniversary speech. Wait, I grabbed his arm. What if this makes everything worse? Worse than your sister humiliating you in front of everyone you know? Point taken. We returned just as my father was tapping his glass for attention. Maureen immediately tried to stand next to him, but he waved her back. Laura, he said, looking at my mother, 40 years ago, you took a chance on a nervous young man who couldn't even tie his bow tie properly. The crowd chuckled. I checked my phone, 15 minutes until the evening news. You believed in me when no one else did, he continued, and that belief changed everything. My mother wiped away a tear. I noticed the TV volume had been turned up for the speech, the news anchor's voice a quiet murmur in the background. Sometimes, my father said, all it takes is one person believing in you to... Breaking news, the TV suddenly blared. All heads turned toward the screen. My heart stopped. This was it. We're receiving reports of a major investment in the clean energy sector. Maureen's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Local startup founder Rosalind Harrison has secured a $20 million investment from tech mogul Leandro Delgado. The room erupted in gasps. All eyes swung from the TV to me, then to Maureen, whose face had gone completely white. The deal, reportedly finalized just moments ago, represents one of the largest clean energy investments in the state this year. Rosalind, my mother's voice quavered. Is this true? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with notifications. The story was everywhere. I looked at Maureen, remembering her words from earlier. Someone has to be the family disappointment, I said softly, but it doesn't have to be me anymore. The room burst into chaos as everyone started talking at once. Through it all, I kept my eyes on the TV, where my company's logo filled the screen. The shadow I'd lived in for so long was finally lifting. But as my sister stormed out of the room, I couldn't help wondering, at what cost? The next 15 minutes were a blur of congratulations and questions. Everyone who had politely ignored me earlier now wanted to know every detail about my company. Even my father's golf buddies, who usually only talked stocks with Maureen, were suddenly interested in clean energy technology. I always knew you had it in you, my mother gushed, though we both knew that wasn't true. She'd spent years suggesting I follow Maureen's path into corporate finance. Yvette appeared at my side, rescuing me from another round of questions. Let's get some air, she said, steering me toward the terrace. Outside, the evening air was cool against my flushed skin. Yvette handed me a glass of water instead of champagne. You'll want a clear head for what's coming, she said, leaning against the railing. The real work starts tomorrow. I know, I took a sip of water. But tonight? Tonight you get to enjoy watching your sister squirm? Yvette raised an eyebrow. That's not why I helped you get this investment, you know. I know. It's about the technology and it's about you, she interrupted. I invested my time in you because you're brilliant, not because you're Maureen's sister. Before I could respond, Jake burst through the terrace doors. Roz, you need to see this. Maureen's giving some kind of speech. We hurried back inside. Maureen stood in the center of the room, her mascara slightly smudged, but her voice steady. As the more experienced businesswoman in the family, she was saying, I feel it's my duty to warn everyone about the risks of startup investments. My father shifted uncomfortably. Maureen, perhaps this isn't the time. No, Dad, they need to hear this. She turned to address the crowd. 9 out of 10 startups fail. That's just statistics. And when they fail, they don't just hurt the founder, they hurt everyone who believed in them. Unlike certain corporate mergers that fall through, the words left my mouth before I could stop them. Maureen's eyes narrowed. At least I didn't have to manipulate my way into a deal. Manipulate? I stepped forward. You mean like how you manipulated Mom and Dad into paying for your MBA while I worked 3 jobs to fund my company? Girls, my mother's voice cracked. Please, not at our anniversary party. But Maureen wasn't finished. You think getting one investment makes you successful? You have no idea what's coming. The pressure, the expectations, the fear of failure, I cut in. Trust me, sis, I know all about that. I've been living with it since we were kids. The room had gone completely silent. Even the waiters had stopped circulating. You want to talk about failure? Maureen's voice was dangerously low. Let's talk about how you're going to feel when everyone realizes you're in way over your head. That's enough. Yvette stepped between us. Maureen, I've worked with both you and your sister. The difference is, Rosalind actually listens to advice instead of just pretending to know everything. And who exactly are you? Someone who's built and sold 3 successful companies. Yvette smiled coolly. While you were climbing the corporate ladder, I was building the whole building. A murmur went through the crowd. Maureen's face flushed red. Well, she said, forcing a laugh, I guess we'll all see how this plays out, but don't come crying to me when… The TV suddenly blared again. More breaking news on the Delgado investment story. Sources confirmed that the deal came shortly after Delgado Ventures pulled out of negotiations with Standard Corp, citing philosophical differences with their business model. All color drained from Maureen's face. Standard Corp was her company. Is that true? My father asked, looking between us. Did you know about this, Rosalind? I… I started, but Maureen cut me off with a bitter laugh. Of course she knew. She probably planned it this way, waiting until my company's deal fell through, then swooping in to steal our investor. I didn't steal anything, I said firmly. Leandro chose to invest in my company because we align with his values, something you might want to think about. Values don't pay shareholders, Maureen snapped. No, I agreed, but they help you sleep at night. The room erupted in whispers. I could see people taking sides, some nodding with Maureen, others looking at me with new respect. Jake touched my arm. Your parents look like they're about to have a stroke. He was right. Mom was stress-eating canapes while Dad kept loosening his bow tie. Maybe we should… I started, but was interrupted by my phone buzzing. The caller ID showed Leandro's name. Excuse me, I said, echoing my words from earlier. I need to take this call. As I walked away, I heard Maureen say something about beginner's luck. But this time, her words didn't sting, because this time, I wasn't the one who needed to prove herself anymore. Rosalind, Leandro's voice was urgent. Turn on CNBC now. I rushed back into the main room, where the TV was still running. Can someone change this to CNBC? I called out. Jake grabbed the remote and switched channels. There I was, my company logo splashed across the screen alongside Leandro's. The ticker at the bottom read, Breaking, Delgado Ventures backs revolutionary green tech startup. I wanted to warn you, Leandro said through the phone. The story's bigger than we anticipated. Your sister's company's stock is already responding to the news. As if on cue, the anchor started speaking. In a surprising turn of events, Standard Corp shares dropped 12% in after-hours trading following the announcement that Delgado Ventures has chosen to back their competitor. Maureen's phone started ringing. She fumbled with it, her hands shaking as she declined the call. Another call came immediately after, and another. The market's reaction is quite telling, the TV analyst continued. Standard Corp's failed negotiation with Delgado signals a potential shift in investor confidence. Turn it off, Maureen snapped, but nobody moved. This emerging player in the green energy sector, the anchor gestured to my company's logo, represents a new approach to sustainable technology. My father stepped closer to the TV, adjusting his glasses. Rosie, is that your prototype they're showing? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with another call, this time from a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Harrison? A woman's voice said when I answered. This is Sarah from the Wall Street Journal. We'd love to get your comment on. No comment, I said quickly, hanging up. Maureen's laugh was hollow. Not so easy being in the spotlight, is it? Ladies, my mother pleaded, can we please just enjoy what's left of our party? But the damage was done. The elegant anniversary celebration had transformed into something else entirely. Half the guests were glued to their phones, watching the market reaction. The other half were trying to get close enough to hear my conversation with Leandro. We should schedule a proper press conference, Leandro was saying. Tomorrow morning? Tomorrow? I glanced at Yvette, who nodded encouragingly. Yes, that works. Perfect. My team will send the details. He paused. And Rosalind? Congratulations, you earned this. As I hung up, I noticed my parents huddled in a corner, speaking in hushed tones. My mother was dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. Mom? I moved toward them. Are you okay? Oh, honey. She reached for my hand. We had no idea. All this time we thought you were struggling, my father finished. We should have paid more attention. Well, Maureen cut in, appearing beside us. She was struggling until today's little publicity stunt. It's not a stunt, I said firmly. My team has been working on this technology for 3 years. Your team? Maureen scoffed. You mean those college dropouts who work out of your garage? Those dropouts include 2 PhD candidates and a former NASA engineer, Yvette interjected. I've worked with them myself. My father's eyebrows shot up. NASA? Dad? Maureen touched his arm. Don't let them fool you. This is all smoke and mirrors. In 6 months, in 6 months, I interrupted, our technology will be helping thousands of small businesses reduce their carbon footprint while saving money. What will your next merger do besides make your shareholders richer? The room fell silent again. Even the TV seemed quieter. You know what? Maureen grabbed her purse. I don't have to stand here and listen to this. I have a board meeting in the morning. To discuss the stock drop? Jake muttered, just loud enough to hear. Maureen spun around, her eyes blazing. This isn't over, Rosie. You may have won this round, but you have no idea what you're getting into. The corporate world will eat you alive. Maybe, I said, standing taller, but at least I'll be doing something that matters. She stormed toward the exit but paused at the door. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry your anniversary party was ruined by this. After she left, the room seemed to exhale collectively. My mother sank into a chair. I need a drink, she announced. Make that 2, my father added. Jake appeared with fresh champagne for everyone. I'd say this calls for a real celebration now. As glasses were raised, I caught Yvette's eye. She gave me a subtle nod, but her expression was serious. We both knew this was just the beginning. My phone buzzed again. More press requests, more investors, more opportunities. The quiet days of working in obscurity were over, and somewhere across town I knew Maureen was already plotting her next move. The question was, who would crack first under the pressure? The morning after the party, my office was chaos. Phones rang nonstop, emails flooded in, and reporters camped outside our modest building. Jake had brought coffee and donuts, but they sat untouched as my team scrambled to prepare for the press conference. Your sister's on line 3, my assistant called out. Again, still not taking her calls, I replied, adjusting my blazer in the reflection of my computer screen. The same screen that displayed dozens of news articles about last night's events. Yvette burst through the door. Change of plans. We're moving the press conference to the Delgado building downtown. More professional. But, no buts. Your sister's already giving interviews, trying to spin this her way. I grabbed my laptop. What's she saying? See for yourself. Yvette handed me her phone, showing a business news interview from 20 minutes ago. There was Maureen, perfectly composed in her office, speaking directly to the camera. While I'm happy for my sister's small success, I have concerns about inexperienced startups making promises they can't keep to investors. Turn it off, I growled. No. Yvette held the phone firmly. Watch and learn. This is what you're up against. Maureen continued. At Standard Corp, we believe in proven track records, not just flashy prototypes. Our shareholders trust us because the office door flew open. My mother stood there, looking frazzled. Mom? I stood up. What are you doing here? Have you seen the morning news? Your father hasn't slept. Maureen's been calling nonstop. This has to stop, Rosalind. What has to stop? My success. This feud. You're tearing the family apart. Jake stepped forward. With all due respect, Mrs. H., Maureen started this. And I'm finishing it, I added. My mother sank into a chair. by destroying your sister's company? I'm not destroying anything. I'm building something, something important. Why can't you see that? Because all I see are my daughters trying to hurt each other. The office fell silent except for the persistent ringing of phones. Mrs. Harrison, Yvette said gently, your daughters are both adults in a competitive industry. This isn't personal, it's business. Everything's personal with Maureen, I muttered. As if summoned by her name, my sister appeared in the doorway. Her designer suit was immaculate, but her eyes were hard. Well, well, she said, stepping inside. Quite an upgrade from the garage. How did you get past security? Jake demanded. I told them I was here to support my sister. Maureen's smile was razor sharp. Family first, right, Mom? Our mother looked between us helplessly. What do you want, Maureen? I asked, checking my watch. The press conference was in 40 minutes. I want to offer you a deal. She pulled out a folder. Standard Corp is willing to acquire your company. Very generous terms. I laughed. You're kidding. Think about it, Rosie. You get a nice payout, a cushy executive position, and most importantly, she glanced at our mother, family peace. You mean you get to save face and absorb your competition? I mean, I'm trying to protect you. Maureen's composure cracked. You have no idea what's coming. The scrutiny, the pressure, the sharks circling. Like you're circling right now? Ladies, our mother pleaded. Please, face it, Maureen, I said, standing straighter. You're not here to protect me. You're here because for the first time in your life, you're scared of me. Her eyes flashed. Scared? Of what? Your little science project? Please, I'm trying to save you from embarrassing yourself. No, Yvette cut in. You're trying to save yourself. Standard Corp's stock dropped another 5% this morning. Your board must be loving that. Maureen's hand tightened on the folder. This offer expires in 24 hours. So does your credibility if you don't turn things around, I replied. Must be tough, having your perfect image crack in front of everyone. At least I built my success honestly, instead of manipulating family events for publicity. Honestly, I stepped closer. Should we talk about how you got your first promotion? Or why Dad's friend suddenly invested in your department? Stop it. Our mother stood up, tears in her eyes. Both of you, just stop. Rosalind, Jake called from the door. We need to leave for the press conference. Maureen straightened her jacket. This isn't over. No, I agreed, gathering my things. It's just beginning. As we headed for the elevator, our mother called after us. Your father and I are calling a family meeting, tonight. Both of you need to be there. Maureen and I exchanged glances. For the first time since childhood, we shared the same thought. This wasn't going to end well. But as the elevator doors closed between us, I knew there was no going back. The time for playing nice was over. The family meeting was set for 7 p.m. at my parents' house. I arrived 10 minutes early to find Maureen's luxury SUV already parked in the driveway. Of course, she'd want to get there first, set the stage like always. Inside, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. My father sat in his favorite armchair, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Mom was stress baking. The kitchen counter was covered with cookies nobody would eat. Sit down, both of you, Dad said, his voice tired. Maureen and I took seats on opposite ends of the couch. Would anyone like coffee? Mom called from the kitchen. Mom, please just sit down, I said. Let's get this over with. She emerged, wiping her hands on her apron. Over with? This is your family, Rosalind, not some business meeting. Could have fooled me, Maureen muttered. Dad leaned forward. Your mother and I have been talking. This competition between you two, it's gone too far. Competition? I laughed. Is that what you call Maureen trying to sabotage my company? Sabotage? Maureen sat up straight. I offered to save you from yourself. By trying to steal my company? Girls! Mom's voice cracked. This is exactly what we're talking about. What happened to the sisters who used to share everything? She happened, Maureen pointed at me. Little Miss Perfect, always playing the victim while scheming behind everyone's back. Me? I stood up. You're the one who's been undermining me my entire life. Remember my college graduation? You announced your engagement during my party. That wasn't intentional. Just like it wasn't intentional when you told my first investor I was emotionally unstable. The room fell silent. My parents exchanged shocked looks. You did what? Dad asked Maureen. She shifted uncomfortably. I was protecting him from making a bad investment. No, I said, you were protecting yourself. Just like always. Heaven forbid anyone else in the family succeed. Succeed? Maureen stood too. You want to talk about success? I worked my ass off to get where I am. Nobody handed me anything except Dad's connections, Mom's praise, and everyone's constant attention. Stop! Mom was crying now. Please, just stop. Dad cleared his throat. We, we need to acknowledge our part in this. What? Maureen and I said simultaneously. Your mother and I, he continued, we may have contributed to this rivalry. May have? I sat back down. You compared us at every turn grades, sports, careers. We were trying to motivate you, Mom said weakly. To what? Hate each other? Maureen's voice was bitter. Mission accomplished. I don't hate you, I said quietly. I just wanted you to see me. Really see me, not just as your failing little sister. Something flickered in Maureen's eyes. I see you, she said. I see how everyone's suddenly acting like you're some brilliant innovator when I know it's just a matter of time before. Before what? Before I prove you right? Before I fail? Before you realize what it really costs? Maureen's voice broke. Do you think I enjoy being this person? The one everyone expects to be perfect all the time? The room grew quiet again, but different this time. Heavier. I never wanted to be perfect, I said. I just wanted to be enough. Mom started sobbing. Dad got up to comfort her. You were always enough, he said, looking at both of us. Both of you. We didn't know how to show it. Maureen's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. What is it? I asked, despite myself. Board meeting tomorrow morning, emergency session. She looked up at me. They're voting on my position. For a moment, I saw past the perfect exterior to the scared sister underneath, the one who used to let me crawl into her bed during thunderstorms. I could, I hesitated. I could release a statement about our companies exploring collaboration opportunities. Maureen stared at me. You'd do that? On one condition, I said. You stop trying to undermine me, publicly or privately. She was quiet for a long moment. The board wants blood. They'll see it as weakness if I don't fight back. Or they'll see it as strategic thinking, Dad suggested. Two sisters combining their strengths instead of tearing each other down. Mom had stopped crying. Does this mean? It means we're trying, I said, looking at Maureen. Right? She nodded slowly. Trying. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even close to resolved. But as we sat there in our parents' living room, surrounded by the smell of stress-baked cookies, something shifted. Maybe, just maybe, there was room for two successful sisters in this family after all. 2 weeks after the family meeting, I sat in my office staring at an email that made my blood run cold. Our latest product test had failed spectacularly, and worse, the data had leaked to the press. My phone rang. It was Maureen. Have you seen the headlines? She asked, skipping the greeting. Yeah. I refreshed my browser. The story was everywhere. Green tech startups, revolutionary products shows fatal flaws. Your stock options are going to tank when the market opens. We're not public yet, I reminded her. No, but Delgado Ventures is, and they're heavily invested in you. She paused. The board meeting didn't go well, did it? I glanced at the conference room where Leandro had just finished reaming out my entire team. Could say that. Jake burst in without knocking. Reuters is on line one. What do you want me to tell them? Nothing yet. I turned back to the phone. Maureen, I have to. Don't say anything to the press. She cut in. Come to my office. Now. What? Why? Because I've been through this before, and you need help. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Maureen in her corner office, watching her pace. First rule of crisis management, she said. Never let them see you sweat. Easy for you to say. Your career isn't imploding. No? She laughed bitterly. Remember that merger I mentioned at Mom and Dad's party? It failed because I rushed due diligence. Cost the company millions. I never knew that. Because I managed the narrative. She sat down. Show me the test results. I handed her my laptop. As she read, her frown deepened. This isn't as bad as they're making it sound, she said finally. Tell that to Leandro. He's talking about pulling his investment. He won't. She started typing. But we need to get ahead of this story. We? Yes, we. I meant what I said at the family meeting. She turned the laptop around. Look at this. She'd drafted a joint press release announcing a partnership between our companies to enhance the technology's safety features. You do that? I asked. Put your company's reputation on the line for me? I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because it's smart business. But her slight smile suggested otherwise. My phone buzzed. Yvette. The vultures are circling, she said when I answered. 3 companies just made lowball acquisition offers. Including Standard Corp? I asked, eyeing Maureen. No, Yvette sounded surprised. They're the only major player who hasn't tried to capitalize on this. Maureen pretended to be absorbed in her computer. Listen, Yvette continued, we need to call an emergency board meeting. This could get ugly. After hanging up, I slumped in my chair. Maybe I am in over my head. Of course you are, Maureen said. Everyone is at first. The difference is whether you sink or swim. Says the person who never struggled with anything. She stopped typing. You really believe that? Come on, Maureen. Everything always came easy to you. Easy? She stood up and walked to her window. You want to know why I announced my engagement at your graduation? Because you're self-centered? Because I was terrified. She turned to face me. You were graduating with honors, starting your own company, following your dreams. I was stuck in a job I hated, engaged to a man I wasn't sure about, trying to live up to everyone's expectations. But you were already successful. I was surviving. There's a difference. She returned to her desk. Now, are we going to fix this mess or what? Before I could answer, Jake called. Roz, you need to see this. Someone just leaked internal emails about the product tests. My stomach dropped. How bad? Bad enough that Leandro's board is calling for an emergency session. Maureen was already grabbing her coat. Where's the meeting? You're not coming, I said. The hell I'm not. You need someone who speaks corporate shark. As we rode the elevator to her parking garage, she turned to me. You know this might not work, right? We might both go down in flames. Why are you really helping me? She was quiet for a moment. Because watching you fail won't make me feel successful anymore. And maybe it's time we both succeeded. Her phone buzzed, a news alert. The market had opened and Delgado Ventures stock was already dropping. Ready to face the sharks? She asked. I took a deep breath. Ready to face them together. For the first time in years, my sister and I were on the same side. Now, we just had to hope it wasn't too late for both of us. The Delgado Ventures boardroom felt like a courtroom, with Leandro's board members sitting in judgment. Maureen and I sat side by side, facing them. This partnership announcement, one board member said, waving the press release, it feels desperate. It's strategic, Maureen countered. Standard Corp's engineering team has identified the source of the testing anomaly. I pulled up the technical analysis on the screen. The problem isn't with the core technology, it's with the testing parameters we used, which my team can help fix, Maureen added. We've done similar implementations on a larger scale. Leandro studied us both. And we're supposed to believe this sudden sisterly cooperation isn't just damage control? Actually, I said, it's something that should have happened long ago. I glanced at Maureen. Sometimes the best partnerships come from unexpected places. Speaking of partnerships, another board member cut in. Standard Corp's stock rose 3% after your announcement. Quite convenient. Maureen straightened. If you're implying this is market manipulation, we're implying nothing, Leandro interrupted. We're stating it directly. Then let me be direct too, I said, standing up. Yes, my sister and I have had our differences. Yes, this partnership might seem convenient, but look at the numbers. I switched to the next slide, showing the potential market impact of our combined approach. Together, we can roll this out twice as fast, with better safety protocols and established distribution channels. Or, I paused, you can pull your investment, watch both our companies suffer, and miss out on what could be the biggest green tech innovation of the decade. The room fell silent. Maureen stood up beside me. My sister built something revolutionary, she said. I was too proud to see it before, but I'm seeing it now, and so is the market. My phone buzzed. A message from Jake. Turn on CNBC now. I grabbed the remote and switched on the boardroom TV. A major tech news anchor was speaking. In an unprecedented move, Standard Corp and their former rival have announced a joint venture that industry experts are calling a game changer in sustainable energy. The stock tickers showed both Delgado Ventures and Standard Corp trending upward. Well, Leandro said, a slight smile playing at his lips. It seems the market has spoken. The board voted to maintain their investment with additional funding for the joint venture. As we left the boardroom, Maureen grabbed my arm. We did it, she whispered. We did it right, I corrected. Our parents were waiting in the lobby. Mom was crying again, but this time they were happy tears. My girls, she said, hugging us both, working together instead of against each other. Dad just stood there beaming. I always knew, don't, Maureen and I said together, then laughed. Jake and Yvette appeared with champagne. Sorry to crash the family moment, Yvette said, but this calls for a celebration. As glasses were passed around, I noticed Maureen staring at her phone. Everything okay? Better than okay. She showed me the screen, emails from major clients praising the partnership. Turns out doing the right thing is good business. Who knew? I clinked my glass against hers. I did, Yvette said. Why do you think I pushed you two together? We all turned to stare at her. Oh, please, she laughed. You think it was coincidence that Leandro looked at both your companies? That the news broke during your parents' anniversary party? That your crisis aligned perfectly with a partnership opportunity? You planned this? Maureen asked incredulously. I planted seeds, Yvette corrected. You two did the rest, eventually. Mom shook her head. I don't know whether to thank you or scold you. Thank her, I said, hugging Yvette. Sometimes we need a push to see what's right in front of us. Speaking of which, Maureen said, pulling out a folder, I have some ideas for our first joint project. Already? We just finished the board meeting. Time waits for no one, little sister. But her smile was warm. Ready to change the world? I looked around at my family, not just my parents and sister, but Jake, Yvette, even Leandro joining our celebration. The people who believed in me, challenged me, pushed me to be better. Ready, I said, taking the folder, but this time, let's change it together. As we gathered around to look at Maureen's proposals, I realized something. Success wasn't about proving myself to anyone. It was about becoming the person I was meant to be. And sometimes that person needed both rivalry and reconciliation to emerge. The revenge I'd sought had transformed into something better, redemption for both of us. And that was worth more than any business deal.